What's the most beautiful thing you've seen in life? Was on a ship out in the ocean with no light pollution, watching the entire sky fill up with dancing northern lights. It's truly beautiful. A total solar eclipse. Just the rarity of the experience made it particularly amazing. One time I was sitting with my best friend at the time on their porch. A little girl and her father were walking by. She asked, "Can we get ice cream please?" He responded with, "No, you haven't had dinner yet." Then a few minutes later they walked back the other way and they both had ice cream. I was in an island. The country I live in is tropical. It was a full moon night, there a cool yet gentle breeze was blowing, and the moon was shining bright almost like the sun. It was so soothing, so beautiful and so cozy that probably I'll remember that till the end of my time. The Northern Lights in Canada. Yosemite National Park. My mom laughing and having a good time after so much heartache. My favorite band hitting the peak of the most beautiful jam, at an outdoor venue downtown, while the sun set. I could not hold back my tears. Not seen, but what it is human connection. The time I've spent with my dad, my friends, or even strangers who I've interacted with. When you have an honest and deep communication and experience with someone, it comes as close to a spiritual sacred moment there is. My dad and I went to a ball game together, then came home and ate at a local restaurant. He said to me that was one of the best steaks I've ever had. Now that's not some deep emotional epiphany, right? But I could cry like a little French schoolgirl here recalling the moment. We had such a great day together and I miss him so. Sea beams glittering in the dark near the Tannhäuser Gate. When my wife and I are clicking well, and she looks over at me smiling with a mischievous glimmer in her eye. Steals my heart every time. One of the last times my grandpa was in the emergency room, the doctors basically confirmed he didn't have long left. My mom sighed, walked to his bedside, kissed the top of his head, and in the calmest voice ever, she said, "You fought a good fight. You've been here all my life and I'm gonna make sure I take care of you like you took care of me." At that point I learned what real love was. I'm not sure it was the most, but the Grand Canyon was spectacular. Any pictures will never do it justice. My old dog on walks every day was like a fairytale movie with him. 2 orcas off Whidbey Island early in the morning while fishing. They put on a show I'll never forget. A hummingbird drinking from a flower about 10 inches from my face. Then turning and looking straight at me for 5 seconds or so. I don't believe in God, but I was staring straight into God's eyes in that moment. Iceland. Reflection of colored light in wet streets after it rained. I admit that I was high, but it was still really pretty. Also sunsets. My mother holding my daughter, as they both sleep on the couch, while our German Shepherd rests by my mother's feet. To this day, I regret never taking a picture and framing it. My dogs smile every time I see him. Sound of laughter and joy coming from a group of people having fun on top of a hill during sunset. I saw a video on YouTube years ago of a 90-approximately-year-old mother who could barely travel, making it to see her 70-year-old daughter who was dying of cancer. To see that mother stroking her daughter's hair and telling her daughter she loved her was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That's probably not the kind of answer you are looking for, but I've never seen anything to compare to it. Getting myself out of homelessness. My wife on our wedding day. For scenery, the mountain views along going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park are the most breathtaking I've seen. For works of man, the Eiffel Tower at night really knocked me out. For art, Michelangelo's David, in Florence, is in a league of its own. This is going to sound cheesy, but when I gave birth and I saw my daughter for the first time, I can't even explain how I felt. It was incredible. Before I gave birth I always thought newborns were so ugly when they first came out, but my mom brain kicked in right away once she came out and I cried so hard. My dog and my cat. Moraine Lake in Banff. I was visiting my grandma in a nursing home. She was 98 and had no idea who I was. Her new roommate was a sorry 82-year-old who had Alzheimer's as well. Her 84-year-old husband came to visit. They chatted and then when he went to leave she held him and said thanks for visiting. He said of course and left. As I left he was sitting on the front bench holding their wedding photo crying. And I'm crying typing this. My son's face the first time I saw him without any tubes or anything on it. He was born 12 weeks early and spent 3.5 months in the hospital. I didn't see his whole face until he was almost 3 months old. Seeing a pulsating human brain in the operating room. Rhythmic and so effortlessly. Cool shit. Those cute hummingbirds zipping around my pretend waterfall in the morning, taking their tiny selves to a wee rock and having a bath. I have a bunch of plants they like out there so then they have breakfast. I love those guys. My husband talking about our son. His father walked out on him and his mom at 3 years old and my husband wanted to be the father he never had. Anytime he talked about our son, the pride and love in his voice would choke me up. He wasn't perfect but he always said the best part of us was our son. I would give anything for my son to not have lost his dad 3 years ago. The way she sat there in my bed with the sun hitting her face from the window, not even erotic, just heart-stopping beautiful. The way a man looks at a woman when he's truly in love. Aside from my wife and newborn children of course. I watched my friend walk away from a toxic relationship. He was never really the same afterwards, and our relationship suffered because I was the one who had to have some very frank talks with him. But he did it, and seems to be way better now. My wife on our wedding day. When I saw her walking down the aisle, I wanted to cry. My hometown. It's a beautiful place. The landscapes and architecture genuinely bring tears to my eyes. There are more striking or objectively stunning places on earth, but for me personally there is nowhere more beautiful than where I grew up. I'm also an incredibly sentimental person, so that is definitely a factor. Sitting on the rooftop of a hotel in Athens, 4 a.m., couldn't sleep because of jet lag, my BF and I watched the sunrise reflecting off the Acropolis. It was amazing. The trip was a gift from my BF, to a place I always dreamed of going to, and it was a spectacular thing to watch the light change on such an ancient landmark. My two dogs' dog. Mom's smile. Sunny afternoons skiing in the Rockies. Glacier Nation Park in Montana. I can still go back to those moments in my mind and see everything perfectly. The pure, unadulterated joy of my dog rescued from an abusive owner, off the lead in the field, as she runs like the wind. Down in Weymouth, summertime, I was camping for a few days. Walked through a mile or so of that mix of long grass wheat down to a bit of a cove. In the afternoon, it was still light but not sunny, the wind was blowing the grass in patterns and the waves were moving in the sea. Life didn't feel real, it was so beautiful. I saw a very young child playing a piano. Not Twinkle Twinkle, but some Mozart or Bach shit. It brought me to tears. I'm not at all religious, but it proved to me there is something God. Bigger and more beautiful than anything we can imagine. People being genuinely kind to others, and not expecting anything in return. Just giving a helping hand. Just paying a friendly compliment. Just being patient with retail workers. Hell, just people in general. It's honestly the most beautiful thing. What sucks is, that type of kindness and generosity don't happen nearly enough these days. Death Valley, no moon, clear view of the Milky Way and the visible stars. I still feel that. Second is the first time I saw a full residential version of Hubble Ultra Deep Field, where every point of light is a galaxy.